Ryan, Forrest, and Ian, thank you so much. Welcome to Unity of Richmond's Sunday morning service. I'm Reverend Valerie Kay, and I am so delighted to be with you today. I welcome those who are here and those of you who are online. And those of you who are online, I invite you to give us a shout out. And if you are new here today, we would love it if you would let us know. And then we can contact you and give us our welcome and our welcome card and give you all the information of how to get connected here at Unity of Richmond. So go ahead and give us a shout out. I thank you, and I would like to invite Reverend Robin Morsh, who is our service leader today, to lead us in the daily word.
Thank you. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry. Today's daily word is free. Living from my divine nature frees me. Sometimes I feel limited when I don't think I have enough money, time, space, education, or experience. These thoughts can occupy so much space in my mind that I begin to think limitation is the truth of my life. The greater truth is that I am free and unlimited in spirit. Alive in God, I'm free to express all the love, wisdom, and strength of the divine as only I can. What joy and liberation it is to know that nothing can separate me from my true spiritual nature. If I believe any circumstances in my life or any of my past actions obstruct or delay my spiritual progress, I now release them, and I release that belief. Embracing and living from the divine presence, the Christ within me, I claim freedom from all limitation. The scripture is Acts 17:28. In him we live and move and have our being. And the affirmation statement is, living from my divine nature frees me. Can we say it together? Living from my divine nature frees me. Thank
you. Good morning. Let's have everybody stand up and really be in a meditative space this morning with this one. Giving thanks. Growing spirit, transforming life. Giving thanks. Growing spirit, transforming life. Giving thanks. Growing spirit, transforming
Spirit, transforming lives.
This quiet space, knowing that there is only one presence and one power. We give great thanks this morning, sweet Spirit, for this service, for all those that are attending, for Reverend Valerie and her message, for the music, for everything that is a part of this service this morning. And we know that we are richly blessed. And we come with open minds and open hearts, allowing ourselves to be the best version of ourselves that we can be in this now moment. And we know that we are an active participant in this service because we are here, we are available, and we're giving of ourselves. And for this, we are grateful, and so it is. Amen. And now we will do the Metro Prayer. Together, we pray for schools and educational institutions of metropolitan enrichment, for all universities, colleges, seminaries, trade, technical, graduate, and professional schools, for the students, faculty, and staff of these institutions. No one?
And now let us say our Unity of Richmond prayer. Unity of Richmond is a resilient, thriving, healthy, spiritual community that is consistently aware of God as source of unlimited substance and supply from all streams of life. New channels of prosperity are opening and flowing to and through and as us, to fulfill our mission and purpose. And so it is. Amen. And so I invite you to take advantage of our prayer chaplains at the end of the service. They're here and available up front to pray with you today. And our prayer box is open for prayers that will go out to the prayer team.
And now we have opportunities. We have several this morning. So first, we'd like to start with the meditation, the live streaming on Wednesday nights at 6:30. But Reverend Valerie is also here, so please feel free to come to the sanctuary, to the church, and actually participate in the meditation. It's a lovely, lovely opportunity to get a refresher in the midweek. Next, today, we have our town hall meeting. There will be a potluck luncheon after the service, meeting to follow. The meeting will also be live streamed via Facebook. Next, we have Healing Crystal Bowl meditations led by Reverend Vicky Quintamo, Reiki Master. It'll be this Friday at 6:30, and it will be on a love offering basis. Next, we have the Reimagining Community, Birthing a New Paradigm, the Eastern Region Virtual Fall Conference. It'll be starting next week, September 26th to October 1st. Please be advised that you don't have to sign up for the whole conference. Feel free to sign up and pay for selection separately. There are potential scholarships available. Anyone interested can contact the church at 804-278-6489 for registration details. Gala dinners. There will be a gala dinner on Saturday, October 16th from 4 to 7:30, hosted by the Hess family, supported by Reverend Peggy White and Ronnie Russell. It's $30 per person. And there also is a note here. It says, the Hess family and supporting hosts would like you to come and mingle and still be able to mask and social distance. You will go from station to sample fine food, featuring stations include seafood, different American food, vegetarian foods, an assortment of cheeses, and a variety of sweets and more. And the sweets I know will be really, really good. They have some really good bakers in that group. Okay, next. Paint Like Van Gogh. It's a painting class led by Susan Moncure, our Susan Moncure. Paint your own interpretation of the Starry Night and be open to amaze yourself. It'll be Saturday, October 30th from 6 to 9 at Unity. The cost is $29, and there's limited seating, so please go out to the gathering space and sign up. Next, as a way of honoring our friends for the upcoming celebration of life services, we'd like to give you the opportunity to record a special tributes to Audrey and Michael. Tributes can be written and placed in the basket in the gathering space. There are 2 baskets out there. Emails to register at unityofrichmond.org or dropped off at Unity no later than this Tuesday, September 21st. And I think that is all the opportunities that we have.
Thank you, Robin. I would also like to point out that this Wednesday, being the fall equinox, the chant night I'm going to share with you will be chanting and meditation for the equinox. So it's going to be a special musical service. All right. All right, let us say our first principle together. There is one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good. And our mission statement, we share the good news that God is unconditional love expressing as the Christ consciousness in each person. And our vision is we are transformed lives, transforming the world. And now our affirmation, Unity of Richmond is abundantly blessed. Creative people are drawn to us. Divine ideas flow through us. Financial resources bless us. And with God as our source, we accomplish mighty works together. And now we turn this over to our music team.
Good morning, beloveds. I met a man without a dollar to his name, who had no traits of any value but his smile. I met a man who had no yearn or claim to fame, who was content to let life pass him for a while. And I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life like the movie stars led. But then he kissed me right here, and he said, I'll give you stars and the moon and a soul to guide you and a promise I'll never go. I'll give you hope to bring out all the life inside you and the strength that will help you grow. I'll give you truth and a future that's 20 times better than any Hollywood plot. And I thought, I'd rather have a yacht. I met a man who lived his life out on the road, who left a wife and kids in Portland on a whim. I met a man whose fire and passion always showed, who asked if I could spare a week to ride with him. And I was sure that all I ever wanted was a life that was scripted and planned. And he said, but but you don't understand. I'll give you stars and the moon and the open highway and a river beneath your feet. I'll give you days full of dreams if you travel my way and a summer you can't repeat. I'll give you nights full of passion and days of adventure, no strings, just warm summer rain. And I thought, I'd rather have champagne. I met a man who had a fortune in the bank, who had retired at age 30, set for life. I met a man and didn't know which stars to thank, and then he asked one day if I would be his wife. And I looked up, and all that I could think of was the life I had dreamt I would live. And I said to him, "What will you give?" "I'll give you cars and a townhouse in Turtle Bay and a fur and a diamond ring. And we'll be married in Spain on my yacht today and we'll honeymoon in Beijing. And you'll meet stars at the parties I throw at my villas in Nice and Paris in June." And I thought, okay. And I took a breath and I got my yacht. And the years went by and it never changed and it never grew and I never dreamed. And I woke one day and I looked around and I thought, my God, I'll never have the moon. Thank you. Thank you, beloveds. Thank you. Our pleasure.
There's a lesson in every song. Yes, thank you. Well, good morning. I thank you for being here today. And last week I began this 3-part study of the practice of revolutionary love, the work of Valerie, a civil rights lawyer, an activist, and author. And her book is called See No Stranger. I also shared what I gleaned from her study last week, the 3 steps or the 3 areas of the compass of revolutionary love. And the first part of the compass was loving others. So we are going to review just very slightly before we move on to the next step of the compass today. The 3 steps to loving others are to wonder about others, to look and wonder and see them as no stranger, to see them as you are a part of me I do not yet know. The second is that we grieve together, that we grieve our collective and individual traumas or losses that we have endured as people as well as a group and society. And the third step of loving others is to fight, to understand that we have a responsibility to fight against injustice wherever we see it, which includes challenging unjust ideas and actions within ourselves, our communities, and our institutions. And then we know what we are standing for, which is the equality and inclusion of all people. So today we're moving to the next direction on the compass, which is loving our opponents. Now, loving our opponents, huh? Okay, so she uses the word opponent rather than enemy because she said enemy is like seems more permanent, but an opponent can, is temporary and more fluid. Sometimes our own family or people in our lives, our bosses, situations are our opponents in life. So we're learning to love opponents, and the first 3 steps of loving our opponents I'll share in a moment. But first, I want to tell you the story of how she got started in more detail. It was the week of 9/11, and a Sikh businessman in Mesa, Arizona, who owned a gas station, who was reaching out and wanted to do whatever he could do for the people of New York. He started a collection, a recovery fund. He went to Costco to get flowers and a flag to put outside, an American flag to put outside of his store. And he came back from Costco and he was gunned down and killed by a man who saw him as a terrorist. His family had received threats. He and his brothers, they wear turbans and they let their hair grow long. It's a spiritual part of their devotion. And so Valerie Kaur was redirected from her other project at the university, and she started documenting things in the United States, especially against the Sikh people, who didn't even have a category, by the way, in the area of when they report hate crimes. The Sikh people weren't even listed. They were just all in one group called other, I guess. So she sat with the family. She grieved with the family. She interviewed the family to tell their story. And then she went to his name was Balbir Uncle. So I just want you to know that's his name. And his wife's name was Joginder Auntie. And so she spoke to Joginder Auntie after the memorial service, of which the whole community came together, Muslim, Sikh, Christian. They came together with their prayers and their just offer of love and support. And as she listened to Joginder Auntie talk about her grief and her loss, she then asked her a question: what would you like the people of America to know? Because she lived actually in India and hadn't come to the United States with her husband yet until his memorial service. And she, though you might expect bitterness, she answered, I will never forget how much love they showed me. Because she was so moved by that outpouring of cards, flowers, candles, prayers. Now, nothing can bring back a loved one, but grieving together helps us to breathe through the loss, says Kaur. Now, Balbir's killer had been living in the area. He was a local. He was a Boeing aircraft mechanic. He boasted earlier that day in the bar that he was going to go out and shoot some towel heads. Now, in light of this tragedy, how easy would it be for you to be able to show love toward a man who killed your brother, your husband, your father, your wife, or your children? Now, the ending of this story is one of forgiveness and reconciliation, which I will share with you as we go along. The thing is that we can never get to that reconciliation until we tend to our own wounds, our own traumas, and go through the stages of birth, as she compares this process of revolutionary love to. So to recap from last week, our definition of revolutionary love is to labor together for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to transform the world around us. And there are 3 steps that we're going to look at today that she outlines, and one is rage. Now, that was a little shocking at first as we're doing this book study. Rage. Tending to our own wounds. That's what, acknowledging the feelings of rage, anger, resentment, hatred, all of that, are tending to our own wounds. The second step is to listen. And we can't do that if we don't release those feelings, be able to listen. And then the third is to reimagine. So we're going to break those three down today. Now, the definition of an opponent is any person whose beliefs, words, or actions cause violence, injustice, or harm. Our opponents can be near or far. They can be persistent or fleeting. And as I said, sometimes our own family, our bosses, those kinds of things can be an opponent in our lives. So let's break this first one down. It's the hardest one to swallow. So let's hear what she says about rage. She says, rage is a healthy and normal response, a necessary response to trauma. It is a rightful response to the social traumas of patriarchy, white supremacy, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, and poverty. She even breaks it down into divine rage. She says, divine rage is fierce, disciplined, and visionary. And the aim of that rage is not vengeance, but to reorder the world. It is precise and purposeful, and it points us to the humanity of those, even those whom we are fighting. To rage is to honor and tend to our own pain so that the trauma does not hijack our ability to see another's humanity. That's what hatred does. It impacts our ability to see each other's humanity. So it would be easy to dismiss another's humanity in this tragic situation, such as Balbir Uncle and others that we know. In fact, anyone with a trauma history can recognize that it's easier said than done to see the humanity of an abuser, which is why we must acknowledge those wounds of trauma and tend to them in order to move in any direction toward reconciliation, whether that be within our own selves or whether it be directly with our opponent, one-on-one. Now, I acknowledge that that isn't always possible. It's not always even safe to do so. However, we can do it within. It's in our consciousness to do that personal work. There are things that we can do or think about to see or look for another's humanity, such as trying to seek to understand their point of view, to have compassion or empathy, to find a way of forgiveness. And as you know, we can talk the talk, but all of those things are experiential. There's something that we have to get deep within our soul, our being. And none of that, it can be intellectualized, but that isn't enough. But none of that can happen until we work on ourselves, until we can tend to our own wounds. The path of transformation, we know, is not a quick fix, nor do we do it alone. And it is an ongoing spiritual quest that leads us to with whom and where our path can take us to the right people, the right spiritual teachers, the right psychological help. All of those things work together to help tend to our wounds. Now, our author talks in detail throughout the book of her own personal trauma, which I'm not going to share today. But I do want to say that she did find spiritual help. She found counseling. She found lots of tools, discovered lots of tools that helped her to release the pain of the trauma, to release the rage, the hatred, and to come to peace within herself, to love herself, and open her heart to loving others. Now, my own personal path led me to adult children of alcoholics support groups, to counseling, to breath work, to spiritual teachers. All of those things work together to help and assist me in transforming my consciousness from the wounds of past trauma, of my childhood and my upbringing. So the next step on loving our opponents is listening. So once we are in a place where we can listen, the next step is that deep listening. And our author says this: deep listening is an act of surrender. We risk being changed by what we hear. To have empathy is to inhabit another's view of the world and to feel that world with them. Wow. Doesn't mean we agree with them by any means, but it means to be able to have the capacity to see from their eyes. So sometimes we are not ready, we don't have that empathy, sometimes we don't feel safe, and that's okay. That's okay. It's all a process. And part of our listening is to, when we do come to that point, part of our listening is to ask, what is at stake for this person? What's important to them? What's at stake for me, and what's important for me in this conversation? And sometimes we have to listen beyond the words that are being said. Now, one of the ways to listen I have found, and I shared when I came here to audition as an applicant for ministry here, is the work of Unitive Justice. The work of the Alliance of Unitive Justice, which was founded here in Virginia, in Richmond, by Sylvia Clute. And I have found the work of unitive dialogue to just be very powerful. And the process of unitive justice, which is a form of restorative justice, our author talks about and shares the restorative justice model as a way of listening and reconciliation. So restorative justice acknowledges and repairs the harm done by and revealed by wrongdoing, and restoration, and it encourages appropriate responsibility for addressing that harm and accountability. It facilitates the possibility for the transformation of individuals, relationships, and communities. Now, in unitive circle dialogue, the objective, of course, too, is to listen, to understand, to find our common humanity, our common values. Again, understanding is not agreement or changing your point of view. It's just understanding the perspective from which the person is oriented. With this unitive circle process, when a conflict happens, the triggering event is identified, and each who voluntarily come to the circle are asked 3 questions. And those 3 questions draw out that understanding, give the opportunity for reconciliation. And then each person is listened to with reflective listening until each person knows they've been heard by the other in the circle. And when that happens, there is a powerful shift that takes place. A collective healing takes place for all individuals concerned. And in this process, of course, it's done by a trained facilitator. Now, when we get good enough at these conversations, then we can practice them every day and be in that mode of reflective listening and being able to listen to understand. The third step on the compass of loving our opponents is to reimagine. To reimagine is to use our imagination to create not just solutions to problems, but to create a culture change without which systems are in place that don't suppress people or harm people to begin with. To imagine that culture that works from shared values and has programs and systems that empower and give equal opportunity to all. Some visionaries have to leave the system and create a new one altogether, and they do that. And some will stay and lead the charge from within. And I can think of two awesome women of color in the Unity movement who did this. The Unity Urban Ministerial School, where I graduated from and where Fred is a ministerial student. The Urban Ministerial School was founded by Ruth M. Mosley, and she stayed within the Unity movement in spite of the discrimination that was happening back then within Unity. Johnny Coleman, she went on and was a powerful woman, and she left Unity and started the Universal Foundation for Better Living in 1956. So these two women were game changers, and they were visionaries, and they followed their guidance and the Spirit to lead them to do what they were called to do. Unity today has been working on reparations and amends for our past, and now we have memorials for both of these women on campus in the Rose Garden for Johnny Coleman and Reverend Ruth M. Mosley, Reverend Johnny Coleman. And we have now named some, or Unity Worldwide has named some, turned some of the housing into Airbnbs, and they're dedicated to these women. Most recently, Unity in the last conference came out with its diversity, equity, and inclusion statement and all of the initiatives that Unity is doing. But the statement is this: together we embrace our individuality. We celebrate our uniqueness with full acceptance of all people, including every expression of the divine. We come together with love and compassion to be a light for all. We stand together in unity. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about our inner work and Unity's teachings on how we change our consciousness. Because we are taught a bit in metaphysics about how involution precedes evolution. So things outside of us do not change until within our consciousness we grow and we evolve within. So on the lines of loving our opponents, I would like to share some of the ideas of Reverend Dr. Gary Simmons, the Eye of the Storm, because he has some things to say about what our enemies are or seeing an opponent is. He wrote the book Eye of the Storm, which is the letter I, not the EYEI, okay? Embracing conflict and creating peace. And in this, he defines an enemy as the belief that someone or something is against you. And he confronts or shows us the logic that if we believe truly there is only one presence and one power active in our lives and in the universe, God the good, then how can we believe in having enemies or opponents? Because it's a duality thought. It's the thought of good and evil, or the belief in two powers. All right? So the truth is that no person or condition is our opponent or our enemy, but what is missing, there's a piece missing in our consciousness that we can relate from, which is our I, the I am, in the eye of the storm. So he talks about the hurricane and uses that as a metaphor, and in the center of the storm, how perfectly sunny, no rain, no wind, calm, and then are all these outer bands. And this is how, when we're living our human condition, this is what happens. We fall away from our center, our I am, our wholeness, our Christ nature. And then we get caught up in these storms that are out out there, we perceive to be out there. So we want to come back to the I am nature, to the center. And in the Sermon on the Mount, he describes the 4 things that Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount that we can do with our enemies. One is love them, bless them, do good to those who persecute you, and pray. Remember the Sermon on the Mount? Yeah. So we remember again that an enemy is what you perceive to be against you. And so if we take these 4 steps, we can build that bridge from the thinking of an energy of enemy or opponent to energy of friend, a part of me I do not yet know that I can wonder about. To love simply means to embrace, accept, and value that person or that thought for what it is. To bless means to endow something or someone with a capacity to be good in your life. To do good means to do the right thing. And to pray means to turn your thoughts over to that I am presence. If we can recognize the world as our mirror and remember that that which is within us is greater than those outer conditions, then we can come from and act from within our divine nature, and we can love fiercely, and we can use everything as a capacity for good. The Dalai Lama talks about our opponents as, he calls them special friends or sacred friends, the people that challenge us and break us open to a greater capacity to love. They are the antithesis to our thesis, and oftentimes the greatest opponent is our own self. So we can do the same thing with our thoughts and feelings. We can love our humanity. We can accept our humanity, embrace our humanity. We can bless our humanity. Yeah. We can do good with our humanity, and we can pray. We can turn things, our humanity over to that greater spirit. Now, the biggest action that we can do in loving our opponents is the act of forgiveness. Forgiveness not having anything to do with the other person, but it is that within us which releases the hold that that person or condition we have given the power to. So it can go a long way, though, toward reconciliation. And forgiveness is like tending the wound, like kintsugi, the Japanese art of putting broken pottery back together with gold, filling the cracks of the vase with gold. It makes it stronger, it makes it more beautiful and more valuable. So we can do that with our humanity, tending to our wounds. And our author says this, forgiveness is not forgetting, but it is freedom from hate. Now, there are many powerful stories I could share today. Too many to tell, but I'm going to tell you the rest of Valerie Uncle's story. Valerie Core came to a point where, she each year goes back with the family. She just did it this last week. They get together in that community in Arizona, and they continue to tell the story and remember this beautiful, wonderful man. And so she began to wonder about Frank, the man in prison for life. It was a death sentence, but it got changed to life. She began to wonder about him and if anything had changed for him. So she asked Valbir's brother, Rana, if he would be willing to talk to Frank. And he said yes. Now, what they did was they arranged a phone call, and so they had a phone call on the phone. And Frank spoke about how angry he was after 9/11 and how that anger just took over and how he came to kill another human being. And they had a long conversation. It didn't all go perfectly. I know the authors said it was very difficult, and she was even feeling maybe not so much responsibility, but it was in her experience. But the brother, he said to Frank, I hear that you're sorry for what you did to my brother. And anyway, at the end of the conversation, this is how it went. I want you to know from my heart, I'm sorry for what I did to your brother. One day when I go to heaven to be judged by God, I will ask to see your brother. And I will hug him and I will ask for forgiveness. And the next thing Rana said was, we already forgive you. He said, if I had the power to take you out of prison right now, I would do it. And if you do get to come out of prison, we can both go to the world and tell our story. Take a breath. That is revolutionary love, an act of forgiveness, a profound forgiveness. Now, from my own experience, I will always remember that when I went to Unity, and Fred and Barbara, who also are licensed Unity teachers, they can remember this well. At our skills demonstration seminar, we are asked to do a presentation. And the presentation, we were each assigned one of the 12 powers. And so one of my classmates was doing his presentation, and his power was renunciation, release. And so his lesson was on forgiveness. And he gave us a Buddhist forgiveness prayer. He shared that with us. That much I remember. It was so long ago, but I mean, it's so profound of a lesson. And then he led us in a retrospection, a meditative exercise where if we could think of one person that we maybe had some resentment or hadn't forgiven, could we write? We had note cards all around, and he said, pick a card and write a note. Write your release of this person and a forgiveness note. And so I did and sealed it up, and we weren't intended to go and mail it out or anything like that, but it was a personal work. So I went home and I thought about that lesson and the prayer, the Buddhist prayer, and I wrote a song called Just Like Me, which is about forgiveness. And within a week of coming home from that lesson, a person that I had not heard from for over a year called and came back into my life. So I wanted to just end by sharing with you this piece of Just Like Me, the message of that Buddhist prayer, and then we'll go into meditation. And then we'll close. So the chorus of the song, and this is my interpretation of the Buddhist prayer, it's not a verbatim thing, but goes like this. Just like me, you want to be free from pain. Just like me, you want to be free from blame. Sometimes you try to hide it and say words that you don't mean. You want to be loved, you want to be happy, just like me. Just like me, sometimes you feel afraid. And just like me, sometimes you make mistakes. You're doing the best you can with what you understand. You are divine, You are beloved, just like me. So, thank you. To love, to bless, to do good, and to pray, and to forgive. These are all the practices that will shift our consciousness to turning from an enemy to a friend, to one that is just like me. And maybe that one that I do not yet know, I will know a bit better. And so it is. Thank you. So let us prepare for meditation now. So we breathe and we relax and we let go. Allow the music to support this time of reflection. You can breathe in and go within to your heart space. Close your eyes or gaze softly in front of you. And as we go into this time of emptying and reflecting, we allow the Spirit to guide and direct. During this time of contemplation, if there is anyone in your life or anyone that you are ready to release, to forgive, how can you love? How can you bless? How can you do good? And how can you pray? For this person or situation, everyone has started their life being a little beautiful, innocent child, a baby. See that within yourself. Hold that young person, that baby, that child. see that in your opponent. So I leave you with this Buddhist prayer. If I have harmed anyone in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through my own confusions, I ask their forgiveness. If anyone has harmed me in any way, either knowingly or unknowingly, through their own confusions, I forgive them. And if there is a situation I am not yet ready to forgive, I forgive myself for that. For all the ways that I harm myself, negate, doubt, belittle, judge, or be unkind to myself through my own confusions, I forgive myself. And so it is. So mote it be. Ashe. And let us take a deep breath together. Several deep breaths. Breathe in and out. Come to the awareness of your seat and your chair. Let go. And now we have time to thank our team today, for our musicians, Ian Krause, for Ryan and Forrest, for Katrina Carol Lewis. And we want to thank Tasha, Bernice in the back. Thank you. Reverend Robin Moore, our service leader. And Kristen, who's somewhere behind the scenes. All right? And so now we'll prepare for our tithes and our offerings and say our prosperity blessing together. Divine love expressing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful.
When a thing is weak, it has a life about it. Now maybe not a life like you and me, but somewhere there's a secret streak of green inside it. Well, come and let me show you what I mean. When a thing is weak, it has a light around it. Now maybe not a light that you can see, but hiding down below, sparks asleep inside it, just waiting for the right time to be seen. You clear away the dead parts so the tender buds can form. Loosen up the earth and let the roots get warm. Let the roots get warm. When a thing is weak, it has a way of knowing when it's safe. sweet enough to feed it. It'll rise up through the earth, a pale new green. You clear away the dead parts so the tender buds can form. Loosen up the earth and let the roots get warm. Let the roots get warm. Come a mild day, come a warm rain, come a snowdrop a-coming up. Come a lily, come a lilac, come to call, calling all of us to come and see. When a thing is awake and someone cares about it, and comes each day to work the earth below, it will live, it will, and you must never doubt it. For through the darkest nighttime, it's waiting for the right time. When a thing is awake, it will grow. Thank you, beloveds. You did that thing. Thank you, loves. Thank you so much.
Just back up for the offering so we can bless the offering. And together we will say, we give thanks for the gifts that will support our mission of creating a spiritually awakened world. And we will say together the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.